Okay, so I think I'm seeing a whole bunch of people joining now. So I'm gonna just click on admit all and we'll begin officially. So we are very happy to have Shiva Shekhar from the University of Passau, who's gonna give a talk on vertical foreclosure in network markets. So Shiva, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So hello everybody. Thank you for joining me and inviting me to this presentation. So I suppose you all can see the slides. And so the title of the paper is Vertical Foreclosure a Concern in Markets Featuring Network Effects? So this is a joint work with Jorge Padilla, who's at Compass Lexicon, and Salvatore, who's at Bergamo and Compass Lexicon. So let's start a bit, kind of what's going on, what's the motivation. So in recent times, there has been a discussion on the connected devices revolution. This means that, the presence of the improved abilities of, transmitting data, analyzing the data, and improving the product on the go has created what is called an unprecedented revolution, where especially in the IoT market, the Internet of Things market. Okay, so the interaction of being able to send data, a large amount of data, and analyzing data, and through artificial intelligence, you can kind of improve the product on the go. And by 2025, it's estimated that there will be more than 42 billion IoT devices. For example, cars, wearables, smart homes, smart cities, among many other applications, industrial applications, and edge computing. This paper, kind of these are a few examples for motivation, but this paper is, has a broader scope on policy making and general in terms of how platforms enter into the markets of, kind of different sellers whom they're also providing a service. Okay, so especially this connected devices revolution brings into question something called data-driven network effects. What is this? Basically, kind of platforms and devices collect data, which allow the platforms to analyze the data, which further improves the value of the product being offered to consumers. Okay, so there's a nice virtuous cycle going on. So these network effects create complementarities, which allow aggregation of consumers, sellers, often resulting in dominant ecosystem suppliers, such as Apple. For example, in B2C markets, there's Apple and Google. In business-to-business markets, there is ARM, Red Hat, Honeywell, among others. So this picture, kind of provides an idea of what I'm trying to do. So, basically, there's a digital platform. So what I assume is that this digital platform is integrated, or is basically this whole data ecosystem is part of the digital platform, where it's able to collect data and improve the services provided to consumers. So what I do is I make the digital platform an intermediary. So this digital platform offers access to kind of OEMs for consumers, which allows the platform to further collect data and then further improve the system. For instance, let's just understand a simple setting like this. So there's a platform U that offers access to consumers to two platforms, D1 and D2. No, two firms, D1 and D2, which then sell to consumers. And the more consumers these firms sell to, the more data that can be collected by the platform. Okay. Collecting data by the platform allows it to analyze the data and improve the services. This further increases demand for the kind of for the two sellers in the market, or for end sellers in the market. So two is just a simple way of explaining what's going on. Okay, so an example of this can be in the B2C market, Amazon's Alexa, Apple Siri, OK Google, among others. Similarly, in the B2B market, there's AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. Okay.
So, may I ask one clarification here? So in the B2C example you are taking, so the Amazon Alexa is the platform U.
Yeah, platform U. Yes.
What is D1 and D2?
So all the devices that are enabled by Alexa, right? For example, I don't know, there's, I think, Sonos, and there are many other devices that are using Alexa, actually.
So then in that case, the arrow which you are saying, that access to the consumer, so which is going from platform U to say D1. So could you just explain that? So this link, sorry,
No, that's fair. That's fair. So normally what happens is there are these smart speakers, which are often linked to either Google or to Amazon or others, right? So these smart speakers, there is a special market. Consumers are looking for a smart speaker. I'm not focusing on the general market for speakers. So this is an example, right? So the idea is that the platform has some consumers who want to access, who want smart speakers, okay? And these smart speakers have to be connected to one of these, platforms. Only then they can provide some value to consumers, okay? And that's what I mean by access to those consumers who want smart speakers.
So, and then more the consumers are, the better it works in that sense.
Yes, because the more consumers ask questions, the more data is being collected by the platform. It understands what consumer wants, and then next time it can provide better data to consumers. Better answers to consumers. Okay, because it's like these fringe queries improve, the search or commands that Alexa can provide.
Yes.
Okay.
Shiva, can I just follow up on that? So is the idea here that as a consumer, I use D1 and D2, but D1 is using something from platform U?
So no, as a consumer, I use either D1 or D2.
Like,
right. I'm not going to buy two speakers. I'll buy one, and that's enough.
Right. So because I'm thinking of something like Google Cloud seems to me to be something that at least I can relate to it better because I use some of these services. But obviously cloud is connecting up to something that I'm using, right? So that, okay, I think I get it. Okay.
So basically D1 and D2 are competing with each other. I'm not looking at complementary service. I'm looking at competing services.
Okay. Got it.
So because I want to understand, suppose the platform merges with D1, what is the incentive to foreclosure rival? So foreclosure is an important, element, especially when it comes to, antitrust and in, vertical mergers, right? So, you want to keep the competition in the downstream market by suppliers. So we get into this, in the next, slide. So basically, in the policymaking circles, there has been a big discussion going on about platforms, vertical integration by platforms, such as a platform that merges with it's one of the third-party sellers, okay, while also providing services to its competing sellers, right? And there's been discussion on foreclosure incentives, huh? So this aggregation dominance has especially brought lots of scrutiny from policymakers on the IoT market. So now recently the European Commission is investigating on the consumers IoT market. We already know there are lots of cases going on in the Apple ecosystem and Apple Music versus Spotify case and many others, right? Recently there's also been a merger between NVIDIA and ARM. ARM is a provider of the ecosystem. NVIDIA is one of the players among many others who are accessing ARM's chip architecture. This paper comes as an inspiration from there. So a major platform concern has been platform duality, which is basically in vertical integration, but in the platform segment. So basically, if you're also providing essential services to rival sellers while also being active, the understanding in policy circles is that your incentives to incentives and ability to foreclose rivals or shut off your competition is much higher because there's a clear feedback loop of network effects that you can exploit. And various remedies have been recommended to kind of avoid this feedback loop. One is the vertical structural separation remedy. What is this? This remedy says that a platform that is providing an essential service to multiple sellers cannot enter the market and compete in direct competition with these sellers. And this is called vertical separation. One more, kind of policy or remedy that has been suggested is presumption of perverse incentives. Normally, what happens is in vertical markets, when there is a merger of merger with a downstream firm, with a seller, a supplier and a seller merge, in comparison to a horizontal merger, the vertical merger is still seen favorably. Why? It's seen favorably because a vertical merger creates an efficiency, the elimination of double marginalization. So there's a trade-off between efficiency and kind of any anti-competitive behavior. But now what they're saying is we will overlook this this efficiency and instead put a vertical merger on par with horizontal mergers, where it's clear that there's going to be an increase in the prices to consumers. So what they're saying is that there has to be a straightaway assumption or presumption of perverse incentives to encourage a rival's exit, and which will lead to monopolization. We actually focus on this second policy element and show that it's not so clear. Actually, it can be in the opposite direction, and one has to be more careful. In comparison to even a case where there are no network effects. Now we go into detail after this. So any questions? Okay. So one thing, kind of what we're trying to do here is there's a platform U. Okay. So I have multiple extensions, and I wanted to focus directly on the main result and avoid the pre-merger case. That is, if the platform does not merge with D1 and D2 with one of the firms. Okay, and what's the incentive? I'm trying to focus only on the foreclosure incentives because the other elements have already been done. So what we're trying to consider is, suppose there is a platform U and merges with a downstream firm D1. What are its incentives to shut off access to consumers for the rival firm after the merger? Okay, that is the main question we are trying to understand here. Especially this is the case when there are network effects. Okay. So the main questions we are trying to answer are, how do network effects impact supplier-retailer relationships? We show that total output and profits increase with network effects. This is standard, kind of as the value of the network increases, the consumer size increases. Overall, there's a nice feedback loop, which leads to more efficiencies. And next, what we ask is post-merger or vertical merger, what are the incentives to foreclose a rival, and what is the role of network effects? First, in the presence of network effects, the unintegrated rival is never fully foreclosed. And there's one more, kind of element here is that when you have a competing ecosystem, you actually want to encourage entry after post-merger. You would not do pre-merger. And next, what we try to ask is, how are consumers impacted by network effects? Consumers always benefit when network effects rise. And investment in network benefits is higher when the platform also competes with third-party sellers. Next, let's move on to literature review. So in this paper, we contribute first to the foreclosure doctrine that has been, espoused by all of, Odover, Hart et al., Bolton, and Winston. What we do is we add an additional element and show that this robust result until now may be changed in some conditions. Especially in this paper, what we do is we include presence of network externalities, which was ignored by all this, this literature, which has been also used in policymaking. And what we show is that in the presence of network externalities, the supplier has no incentives to fully foreclose the unintegrated rival, though there might be partial foreclosure, but that's also there in standard markets. But in our case, even the partial foreclosure is only limited comparison to a market without network effects. Second, we also show that if you have a competing ecosystem, then you have no incentive to foreclose. Actually, we overturn the foreclosure doctrine. We say that actually you want to encourage entry because there's a, I'll discuss the mechanism later on, but the idea is that you want to commit to the market that you're going to be aggressive, especially to the rival ecosystem, but you will see. And this, attracts consumers and everybody. Next, we also, contribute to literature on platform competition with third-party sellers. Here, the results are kind of ambiguous. So there has been, a big discussion going on the positive effect, because once a platform enters, a market where there are multiple sellers, there's going to be increased competition. And additionally, the increased network effects are going to improve overall, profits, and there's going to be a positive effect on the total economy and welfare and consumers. So, but there's also a standard literature that focuses on the negative effects, especially Desconnières, Anderson, Bedre, and all of these. So what this literature basically focuses on the idea of foreclosure. If you foreclose a rival, then consumers either lose variety or there's lesser competition. Overall, there's going to be a negative effect. What we do is we kind of take these two literatures together, combine them. We have foreclosure in our paper. We look at the positive and negative effects in present to network effects, basically. What we show is that there's no incentive to encourage exit of rivals. Platform profits and consumer surplus is higher when the platform competes with third-party sellers. Finally, we also contribute to the literature on information revelation to affect market expectations. In our model, kind of contracts allow for creating market expectations, which also impact consumers' expectation and also the total ecosystem size. So so there's a big literature on how platforms use price disclosure as a way to kind of increase kind of influence market expectations on the value of the ecosystem. What we do is we also consider price kind of using prices as a way to influence market expectation. It's mainly a signaling role on the platform's aggressiveness, either towards attracting consumers or signaling to a rival ecosystem. So let me now proceed to the model. In our model, there's a platform U that offers consumers access to competing third-party sellers, such as a chip architecture supplier like ARM or industrial application platforms such as Honeywell, among others. There are two sellers. All results go through with end sellers. Two is two symmetric sellers. Is a good proxy or in an easy way to in terms of pedagogically. So the seller one is integrated with the platform, and the seller two is competing with the merged entity UD1 in the seller market. And these firms compete in outputs or by setting quantities, and the total output is given by X, which is X1 plus X2. So what we do is we use this kind of famous paper by Katz and Shapiro on interoperability and how to form alliances to increase network effects, to model a vertical market of kind of network effects and ecosystems. So what we say is that the total demand. So the demand is, first of all, is modeled using Katz and Shapiro, and the total demand on the platform for the platform's product, or kind of for access to the consumers, is basically P, which is the inverse demand, right? Which is a function of the value for the ecosystem, that is theta into XE, where XE is the total or total demand on the platform, or the expected total demand on the platform, and X is the total output. So basically, theta is the sensitivity of the consumer's willingness to pay to the network effects. Basically, if consumers expect there's going to be a larger number of other consumers joining, then their willingness to pay increases, which automatically increases the value for the ecosystem. So if there are more consumers joining, consumers expect, that's going to be a good platform, I also will join. Where XE is the consumer's expectation on the total ecosystem size. And as is standard in an inverse demand function, the price falls in the total quantity being sold, right? Because there's more competition. And well, what do you say? The consumer's value for kind of for the ecosystem, or the consumer's willingness to pay increases, which also increases the price whenever they have a positive expectation on the ecosystem size, XE. Okay. And a linear example of this would look something like a similar kind of a function like this. Okay. One assumption that we make, which is important, is that the negative effect of an increase in total quantity in the market on the prices would be larger than any positive effect from increased expectations of increased consumers' willingness to pay through increased expectations. This allows to ensure that the two, from the perspective of the supplier U, the two platforms are substitutes and not complements to the ecosystem. Right? The idea is that if my rival increases the quantity, it's going to hurt me because the price is going to fall. The market price is going to fall. Okay. So let's move to the timing. The timing is as follows. There's a supplier U that offers publicly a per unit fee to each of the sellers. Okay, rival sellers. Actually, there are n of them, but let's look at 2. So to the rival seller. Consumers form expectations, then observing these contracts, consumers form expectations on the ecosystem size, XE. So this is the expectation what consumers make on what the ecosystem size is, and this allows them to increase or revise their willingness to pay for the platform. Basically increase the quality, right? Quality shifter. And then the firms D1 and D2, that is D1 is merged with U, right? D1 and D2 compete by sending quantities and profits materialize. So the solution concept that we employ is this fulfill expectations Kuhn equilibrium, which comes from Katzenspiel as well. So quickly to describe some of the payoffs, the platform profits are given as pi U, which is its downstream margin P into the total output. Its intermediate, its seller has X1 plus how much it earns from selling to the rival. That is W2 into X2. Okay, this is basically what it makes in the upstream market, that is in the supply market, and this is in the downstream market. Okay, the seller profit is basically the margins, the seller, the rival seller's profit is basically the downstream margins, that is price minus the wholesale price it has to offer the upstream firm into the outputs, okay, of that firm. Okay.
Yeah. Just
Yes.
Can I ask one clarification? In the previous slide, you said it charges a fixed amount, right? The platform.
No, per unit.
Per unit. Okay, per unit. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so we allow for 2-part tariffs later on. I'll show it to you as an extension, because we stuck with per unit fees, or this is because most literature, yeah, most platforms have this per unit fee, right? So if we wanted to stick to that, we get to 2-part tariffs later on.
So just one clarification, potentially the platform can charge different fees also, right?
Yeah.
X1,
Yes.
W1, W2, sorry.
Yeah, so now what I do is it's merged, right? So it's not charging any W1. Here W1 is 0, right? Because it's merged. To the rivals, it can charge different fees. Since they're symmetric on equilibrium, one of the is going to be that it's going to charge all of them the same, right? Because of the symmetric element of the game here. Okay, so that's there. This is I just want to again point out that you can have n firms, n competing firms, all the results will go through. Just it's easier to show it this way and to avoid other complications. So let's move then to the final stage when the firms decide to set their quantities. We should remember that consumer expectations are already fixed in stage 2. We're in the last stage, right? So now, given consumer expectations, firms are setting their outputs. So what the platform seller sets output according to this first order condition, which is basically its how it impacts its profit, and this is the first order condition for the platform seller, and this is the first order condition for the competing seller. So now you see there's a small difference, right? That is there's an addition of the per unit fee that is being charged, right, marginally from the platform. For every unit being charged, there's a per unit fee. For every unit being sold, yes. So these two system of equations have to be solved to get what is the total output, or what is the output of each firm given the expectations and the contracts being offered. So let's say that the output of each seller is a function of the total expected quantities or total expectations of consumers, and the per unit fees being charged. It's straightforward that if the per unit fees increase, the output of firm 2 or the competing seller will fall. Yeah, it comes directly from here, while the output of the rival will increase. So now, before moving on, because our focus is on foreclosure, right? Post-merger foreclosure, it's good to point out what could be the choke price. That is, what is the per unit fee above which the rival D2 will exit the market, right? So from here, what do you see? If the per unit fee is equal to the market price, right? The rival seller, the competing seller, will set a quantity equal to 0, right? And it'll exit the market. So this allows us to clearly pinpoint what is the choke price. So that's what we're going to do. So the per unit fee, any per unit fee that is larger than the market price will exit, will lead to an exit of the rival in the market. Okay. And for any fee that is below this market price implies that the rival is active in the market. This allows us to, clearly, look at the cases whether there's foreclosure and when there might be and when there might not be a foreclosure, for foreclosure effect post-merger. Okay. So then we move on to stage 2. In stage 2, consumers have formed expectations, but these expectations have to be correct, because consumers observe the contracts and they form expectations, right? These expectations have to be correct, and we impose rational expectations, and and basically then the outputs are just a function of the wholesale prices or the per unit fees, actually. Yeah. Then the platform sets fees in the stage 1. Platform sets fees to maximize profits, which are again given by the following, right? Again, as we discussed before, this is the downstream, revenue, and this is the upstream revenue, right? Differentiating this with respect to wholesale prices and employing the envelope theorem, we can basically, break down the whole first order condition into different elements. First, yes.
At this stage, if I may ask, so am I correct that you didn't explicitly specify that how these expectations are formed, in a sense that suppose there is only one firm in the market versus the 2 firms, so like how the expectations are formed?
So yeah, exactly. These wholesale prices allow consumers to form expectations on whether there's going to be competition in the market or not, because it comes from here, right? So consumers will also anticipate, right? And this is where this allows consumers to form expectations. If the wholesale price is very high, obviously they'll downgrade their expectations, right? If wholesale price is low, they know that the downstream firms are going to expand their outputs, and consumers are going to, favorably, correct their beliefs more and more, right? Expectations.
So, yeah. So is there any particular functional form you have opted, like how the exact? Yeah, in a sense,
yeah,
so the okay.
I get to it at the end. Actually,
okay.
I know that most people ask this question about the micro foundation, so here you go. So I skipped it out because some people don't like it, but yeah. So basically, we use a Katz and Shapiro framework, right? And Katz and Shapiro, consumers are distributed according to the valuation R, okay, which is with some functional form, and the utility of each consumer is basically the type R, right, which is the intrinsic value, and then this is what consumers value of the network. Consumers make an expectation, and this is going to increase their utility, okay, and the price of each product in the market, okay. All sellers, as in Katz and Shapiro, all sellers who make a sale must offer the same hedonic value. What they call it is basically that the price minus the basically the adjusted price taking into account quality should be the same, and then this allows them to pinpoint what is the total output in the market. There's basically all the all the sellers who provide the same value, what they call the hedonic value, and no, this, let's say it's a hedonic cost in some sense, right? And for all the sellers, for all the consumers for whom the R is larger than this price, adjusted price, will buy the product. So X is the total demand in the market, and this is basically the demand function here, okay? And using this, we can invert the demand function. We can invert this, and we can basically get P as a function of theta XE, which is the value for the ecosystem, and X is the total output, and where G is the inverse of F. And so basically the demand function looks something like this, okay? And so what is the timing? The timing is platforms make the contracts public. Okay, observing the contracts, consumers make. Sorry. Yes.
By contract you mean W1, W2, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And then this allows them to, you need something to form expectations, right? This allows the consumers to form expectations on what the output is going to be, and then the outputs are set.
XE is nothing but the summations of output which they are expecting given this
Exactly.
W1, W2.
Exactly. Yes.
Now I got it.
So X is the total output. XE is the expected output, or basically the size of the ecosystem.
So in equilibrium, these two things should coincide in a sense.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
So just to be like, so the platform, is it correct to say that suppose if he charges the W2 equal to that market price, the upper bar, the choke thing, which I guess you use the
choke
word.
Price, yes.
In that case, platform knows that the firm 2 will exit, and then platform can charge a monopoly price.
Yes.
But the downside is that because consumers they expect their XE will be like lower, so that the price it can extract is lower. So it's a trade-off.
Exactly. You perfectly pointed out, the full mechanism, amazing, exactly. You got the whole thing. If the wholesale price is equal to choke price or higher than that, consumers know that they're going to downgrade their expectations. As a result, the value and the price that the platform can extract from the downstream market is going to be lower. But when you have a rival in the market, now you see what is the useful use of having a rival in the market.
Right.
If I set a contract, I can actually optimize better because I can now influence consumer expectations.
Right.
In the previous case, I could not, because if I'm a monopolist, I cannot commit in any way to set prices lower to attract more consumers and benefit from these network effects, because I can only commit to a monopoly price. But the presence of a rival allows me to influence influence the consumer's expectations favorably. Exactly. Yes, you pointed out fully correctly. You basically got in the mechanism. I'm happy. I've been to so many presentations with this paper. Some of them, it's not so clear for some people. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So here basically describes the whole analysis that actually Sarvesh right here, and I know basically we discussed. So let's quickly go through. So normally when I increase the wholesale price, there are two elements happening. There are multiple elements happening. Let's go with when there are no network effects. First, the marginal revenue is going to change. This is basically the marginal revenue of the upstream firm, that is the supplier, right? As the supply component. When I increase the wholesale price, that my per unit revenue is going to fall, or overall, I'm sorry, sir. When I increase the wholesale price, my profit from the rival is going to fall because the rival sets lower, quantities. However, there's going to be a positive effect on my own sales because there is some substitution of consumers away from the rival to kind of my product. That is basically here. Okay. So this is basically saying that if I increase the wholesale price, the total, the output of the rival is going to be negative, which is going to positively benefit the profit of my own, of my own entity D1 downstream. Okay, because if the guy reduces the output, overall this is going to be positive and it's going to benefit me because the prices are going to rise, right? If I increase the wholesale price, the downstream, market price is going to rise because the rival sets lower, quantities, right? Which is going to benefit my own entity D1. However, now when you have network effects, there's an additional element that plays a role. That is a network externality effect. If I increase the wholesale price, the network externalities are such that consumers will downgrade their expectations, which is going to lower the total output, right? And basically, this is here. If this is the what do you say, the impact on consumers, how consumers' expectations impact the the total output, or no, this is the positive impact. So as an increase in consumer expectation increases the total kind of market price. However, if I increase the per unit fee, right, to my rival, the total output is going to fall. Overall, it's going to be negative. Okay. And this enters the first order condition in a negative way. This balances this idea of shutting down the rival through the strategic effect. Okay. So to be more precise, we can kind of rewrite the above. And basically, when there are no network externalities, this term, the network externalities, basically vanishes. What we have is only these two terms, right? And there you can already see, when there are no network effects, the supplier has only one, wholesale price or per unit fee, the unique one. That is, it will set the per unit fee equal to the marginal, equal to the market price, which we know will induce the rival seller to set the output equal to 0, right? We discussed the choke price. So, and this is a unique equilibrium. Okay, so what we know is, when there are no network effects, the rival leaves the market. This comes directly from this unique equilibrium that comes from here. Okay, and this also confirms the standard foreclosure, idea that has been discussed in foreclosure doctrine, right? And now what we say is that for any positive network effects, that is theta being positive, because theta is basically allows us to vary the value of network effects in the market, right, of the ecosystem size. For any positive network effects, since the network externalities effect enters negatively the first order condition, the wholesale price is going to be lesser than the market price, implying that the output of the seller, or that the rival seller, is going to be active in the market. Okay, so this is basically the channel. So when theta equal to 0, the platform prefers to be a monopolist. For any theta positive, the platform prefers to have competition in the market. Okay, this is standard. What we do now is we do some comparative statics of the per unit fee with respect to theta. So as I said, right, there is a countervailing force on the foreclosure incentives through this network externalities effect, right? There is a countervailing force of network externalities on kind of the per unit fees. So
Shiva, I just have a question. Can you just go back a couple of slides?
Yeah.
The one before. Yeah. So here, why is this? Can just skip ahead. Yeah, this one. Why is this first bracket assumed positive overall? Is that following from the assumption earlier, or
no? It actually no. The thing is this: it comes directly when you kind of include all of the things together. The strategic effect is always going to be stronger than the network externalities effect. This is because actually we can see it here itself. So you see this dP by dx. Right. So that is the reduction in my own price when quantity increases has to always be larger than dP by dxc, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that you agree. And we know that the output that as the supplier increases the per unit fee to the rival, the impact on the rival's output is always going to be more negative than the impact on the total output, because the rival's output is going to increase. So overall, this is going to be positive because this is negative, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And this, okay. Yeah. So I know I skipped a few steps ahead, but you see what I mean, right? Yeah. Okay. So now the wholesale prices are, in a sense, there's a countervailing force, right, of network externalities on the wholesale price or the incentives to foreclose the rival. So when network externalities are very small, then the raising rivals cost effect dominates. That's a standard, setting, kind of foreclosure incentive rises, right? After a point, the platform realizes it might be actually worthwhile to lower my wholesale prices, because then I can actually benefit from the ecosystem effect. So then ecosystem fostering, this dominates. Basically, it comes from, where is it? Yeah. So basically this part, gets bigger and bigger, and overall it's going to lead to higher, kind of lower wholesale prices. Okay. Next, yeah. So going to welfare analysis, with per unit fees, an increase in the value of network effects, theta, leads to higher platform profits. Is consumer surplus increasing, and increases the profit of the competing seller, because now the competing seller becomes a more important part of the ecosystem. It's providing more value. So you want to have the firm, and its kind of output increases and profit overall increases. Okay. Now let's go to some extensions. What we do is we now look at competing platforms, like competing ecosystems, you call it. Okay. There's a platform U that has, is vertically integrated and competes with one more incumbent platform, which is called PI. Okay, with an inverse demand PI, where A is its incumbency advantage. Okay, and then the total output would be Xi, X1 plus X2. Okay, and the incumbent's payoff, which we assume the incumbent is vertically integrated, because we're trying to understand Intel and NVIDIA ARM merger. So we're trying to see Intel is a vertically integrated firm, right? It doesn't allow any other platform to use its chip architecture. Now it's allowing, but previously it was not. So we use that as the incumbent's payoff. And so it looks something like this. So there is a platform that's merged UD1, let's say NVIDIA ARM, and this is basically D2, right? That's the other supplier, and this is the merged ecosystem, which is competing with the vertically integrated. There's competition between the two firms, right? And two ecosystems. What we find some interesting results here, actually, that overturn the doctrine, of foreclosure doctrine. With an integrated incumbent, the platform UD1, or the vertically integrated platform, has no incentive to encourage the exit of the rival, even when theta equal to 0. Normally, what we had was, without the presence of this integrated firm, the rival shut down without the presence of network effects. The let's say the UD1 shut down the D2 firm, right? It foreclosed D2 firm. Now what we show is that even when there are no network effects, then when theta equal to 0, the incumbent, the integrated incumbent or an integrated firm, has incentives to keep D2 alive. Okay, and basically the per unit fee is given like something like this. Interestingly, the per unit fee can even be negative, especially when theta is very large, or when the network effects are very large. The rival can actually the integrated firm UD1 can actually pay its rival to be active in the market. Okay, this is because dealing with D2, dealing with the rival, is a commitment device, not only to consumers that there'll be more competition or it's going to be aggressive, but also to the rival ecosystem, which is fully merged. Because if I'm going to, it's a Kuno, model, right? If I'm aggressive, then the rival is going to be less aggressive, and contracting with D2 allows me to behave very aggressive, kind of signal aggressiveness in the market, which is going to reduce the merged ecosystems. What do you say? I can hear something, yeah, but so the merged ecosystems, response, right? Because it's going to behave less aggressively, because quantities are strategic substitutes, right? Yeah, exactly. And this basically, what we can say is that with the presence of an integrated incumbent, the platform UD1 has higher incentives to keep the rival alive and increase the rival's output. Further, interestingly, when network effects are very large, the output of the rival D2 is even higher than that of the integrated platform, because it's getting a negative price now, right? Because W is negative. So X2 is even going to be larger. This is simply because now the platform is trying to compete with a rival ecosystem I. And then the output of the incumbent is decreasing in theta. That's the incumbent I that's vertically merged. Okay. So what is the incumbent response to entry? It's something that we should look up and understand. First, a monopolist incumbent, I think, has incentives to open its platform to third parties. Okay, you can see Apple introducing Siri for third-party devices, and also now Intel, after kind of recently after the NVIDIA ARM merger, you notice that Intel is trying to offer its designs to third-party kind of sellers. And further questions are, what are the platform incentives to invest when being closed or open to rival third-party sellers? it's not so clear, because investing in platform also benefits the rival seller, and then the investment depends on the inter-platform competition. Next, quickly, I go on to one more extension on two-part tariffs, which is exactly kind of the discussion that we had before. We know in two-part tariffs, at least the downstream stage, the responses are going to be the same. So I only focus directly on the contractual choice stage. In two-part tariffs, what can a firm do? If it has full market power, it can extract all the surplus except the outside option of the firms. So it's basically going to set outputs to maximize total industry profit. So this is P into X, right? Total output X of W2. Again, we can employ envelope theorem, and again we have the standard network externality effect, strategic effect, right? And now you can see when network externality effect vanishes, right? This is 0, right? Well, what you have is that only the strategic effect remains, and there it's clear. I have incentives to foreclose my rival, because if I set wholesale price equal to the market price, I know that the rival is going to leave, and that is my that is actually my optimal my equilibrium, right? That's what I'm going to do. So basically, when network effects are not present, wholesale prices are equal to the choke price, and the unintegrated firm always exits the market. For any theta being positive, wholesale price is going to be lower than the choke price, which is W upper bar L, because the network externality effect enters positively, and remember that this is negative here. So overall, it's going to be negative. And then this leads to the output of the rival being positive, and that means it's going to be active in the market. So the platform chooses to be closed or open depending on chooses to be closed when network effects are not present. Instead, when network effects are present, it wants to open up, because it can then influence consumer expectations and optimize better. For any positive theta, the platform incentives to encourage market entry of rivals and foster competition. Moreover, as network effects increase, the wholesale price falls, because now the platform is completely internalizing the industry profit, right? So it wants to maximize. So as the value of the ecosystem increases, it's going to lower its price to encourage more output in the market, because this will increase the value for the ecosystem, and that's it can extract to the fixed fees and the efficient contracts or two-part tariffs, right? And the rivals output also increases post-merge. Next, this model is quite flexible. We can easily take this model and make it a two-sided market model. How can we do so? So let's take this demand function, right? Suppose there are two sides. There is a developer side and there are consumer side, and on the platform, right? And here, basically, the consumers value the presence of developers. Let's call gamma the total cross-network effect of consumers, and this is consumers' valuation of the number of developers on the other side of the platform. Okay. Next, you can also model developer demand, standard Armstrong kind of way, where each developer is heterogeneous in its outside option or cost of content development. Okay, where it values the presence of consumers phi, and this is how much it expects the total number of consumers active on the platform. Okay, and then the total mass of active developers is just phi into XE. Now you can already see where I'm going. You can easily once you do fulfill expectations, then we just need to change one small thing. We just need to change our theta parameter that we had before as the value of the ecosystem just into gamma into phi. All the results will go through. I've made a few simplifications to get this. Why? Because there's no price being charged to developers. But if you charge a price because of elastic demand, all the results will be the same. Though this gamma into phi will not be there. It will be a little bit different, but the results are all going to be there. Next, we also do other extensions where there are end sellers and all results go through. And one new insight that we have from end sellers is that the platform's profit rises with them. That's standard. Especially when you have per unit fees, the more competition there is, there's lesser double marginalization, and the larger the surplus that the upstream firm or the supplier can extract from its rivals. That's standard. And under secret contracts, again, the no foreclosure result goes through. Okay, and price competition analyzing in V-Ways, but this is a little bit, we are still working on this, a little bit fishy because of some issues. And finally, there's investment in, we also showed that some interesting result that investment in network benefits increase when when you're open to third-party sellers, because you can optimize better, and that means your margin revenue also going to be higher. Some policy implications. So I discussed in the introduction that the US recommendation was that when there are vertical mergers in platform markets, there has to be one has to be careful, and they are recommending that there has to be presumption relating to input foreclosure and customer foreclosure. And it should be, it is going against what is the idea of standard that vertical mergers might lead to efficiencies. And we say that this recommendation, one must be careful. You cannot just blanket say that all firms are going to be that all mergers are going to be bad. You have to be careful, especially when rival sellers also create some complementarity onto the platform, create some value for the platform. And when strong network effects are there, or when there are competing ecosystems in the market. Further, one more policy implication that we want to bring out is that the incentives to invest and innovate in network effects are higher post-merger. And so apart from the efficiency argument, there's also an argument of increased innovation incentives in the market post-merger. Now we conclude. It is the main result of our paper is that it is profitable for a platform to have the rival sellers being active in a market than being a monopolist, especially when there are network effects. Okay, when network effects are very large, even partial foreclosure is not a concern, and this is especially the case in the presence of competing ecosystems. When there are competing ecosystems, actually the platform might actually want to have entry in its own market to be more aggressive and to signal more aggressiveness to the rival ecosystem. Post-merger, the incentives to innovate in network effects is higher. Our main result, no post-merger monopolization, is robust to a variety of extensions like two-part tariffs and downstream firms, two-side markets, and secret contracts. Thank you. I'm done, I think.
All right, thanks, Shiva. So we finished well in time. So if there are any questions, we have time for some pretty lengthy discussions if you want to. All right, there's
in case you have questions also regarding, perhaps something of the model, maybe I might have jumped or gone faster, and you're more than welcome to ask questions, and I'm happy to help out, or at least discuss, because, for me, it's more clear, right? So I'm happy to discuss them as well.
Hi, Shiva.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Mike. So can you just go back to the welfare part? I think I didn't understand it completely.
So 1 second. Yeah.
Okay. Fees and increasing quick fix. Okay. So we are saying that if theta increases, then consumer surplus is increasing.
Yes.
But are we doing the comparison for constant theta, like monopolization, like a partnership between platform and D1?
No, actually, I think I have to be careful. Sorry, that's a good point. So I'm comparing this actually with, first, this is just increasing generally, but the idea for me is that I'm comparing it to a case with no merger. Like suppose there are independent downstream firms, D1, D2, and many others. I'm comparing it to that actually. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so just let me be clear. So you're saying that the comparison case, how it changes, the comparison between the two situations, how it changes with theta. That's what we are seeing.
Yes, but here I'm just saying that. So basically, any increase in the total value of network effects, right? Theta into that leads to higher platform profits. That's
Okay.
given. And any increase, like now I'm only looking at the post-merger case, okay? And it's always increasing, is always consumer surplus increasing because the total output increases, and also it increases the profit of the competing seller.
All right. Okay. Okay. Fine.
So if there are no further questions, we can stop this. If there are, please, I'll give you guys a minute or so to think about anything you want to ask. We have a lot of time, so if there is anything, please go ahead. In any case, thanks, Shiva. That was a very interesting talk, and thanks to our participants as well.